Let's get ready to grumble! All right, this is the Let's Get Ready to Grumble! We are going to have my good friend Eric Kessner joining me here shortly. But I want to set the stage for this, right? Because the Grumble is usually a 3-round haymaker fight. And we're always trying to take down the bad guy. But sometimes these bad guys are sort of like pop-up little weebles or, little finger puppets and stuff. They're not really big dogs. They're sort of put up there for us all to hate. Have y'all ever seen the movie 1984, read the book 1984? And you got the 2 minutes of hate and Ingsoc and everybody's yelling, screaming, oh my God, woe be down with Goldstein. Goldstein's the enemy. We're fighting with Eurasia. We're about, whatever. I'm here to talk to somebody that's actually in the street today. Somebody who's actually dealing with looking the lobbyists in the eye and saying, dude, what you're doing's fucked up. I'm dealing with somebody who honestly came into a lot of this thinking that, maybe electoral politics, maybe there's a real chance of winning just by casting a ballot. But this is a guy who started a activist group called Yellow Vests Actions. And Yellow Vest Actions is part of our Real Progress in Action group over there at Real Progressives in my other life. And, I asked him to come on because he has spent the last, 2-3 months in his car in Washington, D.C., hanging out with everybody and anybody that'll talk to him, putting up signs, being obnoxious, waving at people, talking to people, handing out information. He's literally living that life, the life that I frequently talk about, that we have to do collectively, large scale, much more large scale, and much more meaningful in terms of making demands and being able to, do something meaningful to make those demands come to fruition. And folks, with all due respect, it goes beyond hitting the button in a voting booth. That's like the minimum point of entry. That's the minimum viable product. That's the lowest entry point in society, is to push the ballot box. Just do the damn thing, right? But where the rubber meets the road, that's what we're going to talk about today. So let me bring on my guest, Eric Kessner. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on. Good seeing you.
You too, buddy. You too. Dude, you're like living in a fucking car, man. You're living in your fucking car. You're from Washington State. And you drove cross country with your son to literally be a pain in the ass of politicians that say that they're there to serve us. But you know as well as I do that we still don't have Medicare for all. We haven't had a vote for Medicare for all. We haven't seen a job guarantee. They stopped even talking about a Green New Deal. Biden gives us Build Back Better, and it keeps getting shrunk back, shrunker. Smaller by minute, irrelevant and non-existent. And yet, he's out there right now bragging about 1.3 trillion in deficit reduction, and we have nothing to show for it. And I'm curious, as somebody that's in the street, what has been your experience hanging out with politicians, working with other activists? What are some of the things that you see happening with the lobbyist community, et cetera? Tell me about your trip.
Well, I started out like most of us with the Bernie Sanders, go Bernie, and trying to make electoral politics happen. And in recent months, I've come to realize that there isn't anybody that's going to save us. There's no Bernie that's going to save us. There's no squad that's going to try and do anything. We don't have any solutions there. I mean, I agree with you about what you said about voting. It's like the ante up in a poker game. You got to do that just to start the game, right? Just just the basic responsibility, and that's it. And how much weight we put in that? Not much. I don't put any weight in it at all. So I think that the only answer is us finding our collective power in the streets. Just like the history has proven again and again, but civil rights and women's rights and gay rights, all those movements got traction and were catalyzed because people filled the streets en masse, right? And I think anything that we want now is the same thing. If we want Medicare for all, we want a federal job guarantee. If we want a Green New Deal, we want student debt cancellation. We want medical debt anything on the progressive agenda. If we want it, we're going to have to get into the streets and fight for it, just like they did in the past. And nothing's really changed, except people are very much divided now. But as far as the life up here goes, yep, living in the car. I planned for it for a few months. So, I've got a nice big bed and a kitchen and I got everything I need. So it's a way of saving money. I'm living off about 10, 15 bucks a day. And some days, even less. And just trying to squeeze as much time out here to do as much as I can to connect dots and meet people and yes, meet our politicians and unfortunately get in the faces of lobbyists and they're just a bunch of meatheads, But I have had some some meaningful dialogue with John Yarmouth and Ro Khanna, and next on my list is Brendan Boyle. He's a Democrat out of Pennsylvania. Evidently, he's a big MMTer, so says Ro Khanna, which is news to me because I've never heard of the guy until Ro Khanna said his name, and I would think that Ro said that that he won't shut up about MMT, quote unquote. And I'm like, well, how come we haven't heard about it yet? So I'm trying to get his scheduler to get on his docket or whatever, and I've been passing out, our Real Progressives MMT postcards and trying to strike up conversations with people outside the Starbucks here. There's I'm sitting on Independence Avenue and 3rd, right out front of the infamous Heritage Foundation, where these scumbags come and go all day long, and they won't even make eye contact with you. I've got that sign that I made that you helped me out with, a Grumbinism, I call it. Austerity is murder and lobbyists are the killers, with a big red bloody handprint on the sign, right? And they'll look at my sign, but they won't look me in the eye. And on rare occasion when they do, I don't have like a big temper, but these guys just bring it out in me. I mean, I just can't stand these motherfuckers. They're the worst subhuman pieces of garbage on the face of the earth. And they are what's standing in between us and what we want. They represent the corporations, of course. And, we are United Corporations of America now, just like, Jordan Sheraton says, his American flag with all the pictures of the corporations, the stars. And it's so true. I mean, our representatives are completely captured, by, big pharma, big insurance, big ag, big oil, of course, the military industrial complex. I mean, you name it. These guys are all bought. And for us to think that they're going to do anything for us at this point is really unrealistic. It's just, I mean, we're just missing the boat. And the only place I believe our solutions are going to lie, is in the streets, non-electoral solutions. So, I'm just by myself up here and doing some good, and I'm not sure fighting with lobbyists is good, but it makes me feel better. And I'm a pretty angry guy about that, but not in general, but just about that situation. So I know I sent over a clip of a little some dialogue that I had with one of them.
It up.
Parked outside the Heritage Foundation today, giving some lobbyists some hell. I got my signs out, my car parked. We're right over here. where the beasts live in their little slimy lair, the Heritage Foundation, just one of the lobbyist firms up here on Independence.
North Korea has that.
32 out of 33 modern industrialized countries have that.
How are you going to pay for it? We're going to be like North Korea. We'll have to borrow the money from China. Where are you going to find the money?
Morning. In the UK, we have the National Health Service.
Yes, you do,
Bloody
and I'm very
marvellous.
jealous.
Absolutely bloody marvellous. How you put up with this shit, I do not know.
Yeah, it's
If you've
kind
got
of
money,
incredible.
that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Money. It's the trouble with this country. Money talk.
Yeah.
Bloody time. No.
Yeah, it's a
No,
class war, isn't it?
Keep up the good work. Yeah.
So let's peel this back for a minute, right? Obviously, we have seen people fighting for healthcare, Medicare for all for a long time, right? Many of us got super excited about Jill Stein back in 2016 after Bernie Sanders even because of the Green New Deal. Okay. The Green New Deal suddenly got the name anyway, got co-opted by the Democratic Party. And the principles, though, are robust. They got a whole scaffolding of policy proposals that deal with sustainability, deal with employment, deal with infrastructure, deal with fuel and energy, deal with adaptation too, not just trying to mitigate carbon, but actually deal with adaptation, getting us away from fossil fuels. So it's more than just a fossil fuel thing. It's a comprehensive thing that John Yarmouth was instrumental in trying to go forward. He was one of the sponsors on this bill. He, Markey, and obviously, AOC. When you talk to John Yarmouth, what was his, I know he's retiring, but what was his temperature like in regards to, what he saw hopeful wise, or did he see it hopeful? Was he more pessimistic?
Well, one of the main reasons that I wanted to get together with him was because he's retiring, and I wanted to find out who is going to be our next, MMT champion. Who's going to champion that? Because he's been the only one that's vocal about it since ever. And I believe he's the first one to ever go on record and officially talk about it, hold up Kelton's book and say the words modern monetary theory and tell people that America and most of Washington, D.C. needs re-educated on macroeconomics.
Why does it matter to you, by the way? Just curious, because, when I first met you years back, you were a yellow vest guy. You wanted to, create the groundswell in the streets. You wanted to make that thing happen. But this modern monetary theory bug caught you. What about MMT caught you? Why do you even give a shit about MMT? Why does it matter to you?
Well, because Americans are asking themselves the wrong set of base questions. We're asking ourselves what the establishment taught us to ask by asking it of us. The how are you going to pay for it question, right? That's what the Democrats and the Republicans, they stand up there, and every time decent legislation is run up the ladder, that's the bulwark that it runs into, is how are you going to pay for it? And until we can answer that question perfectly and succinctly, all of us, we're going to be in bad shape, because that's what always knocks down what we're after. And so the reason I care so much is because everybody has been propagandized. We are from birth till death, and we all have this idea that our government is somehow constrained, by money. That, geez, 19 trillion for a Green New Deal, that sounds expensive. Wow, how are we going to pay for that? Yeah, wow, I guess that really is expensive. Geez, I guess we can't do that now. People kind of just accept that things are expensive because we look at it as if it's a household budget, right? If states, municipalities, people, businesses, we all are on a household type of budget. But the federal government, they're not in that position. They can spend and spend and spend if they want, as long as it's good spending, targeted on us, hopefully, and hopefully not on war and billionaires and oil subsidies. But basically, America's asking themselves the wrong question, and that wrong question is, how are you going to pay for it? And the right question is, why aren't our representatives helping the most vulnerable first, when they easily could? The resources are right there. The money is right there. It's never a question of the paper money. It's a question of, do they have the will to do it? And that's the only thing standing in the way, is the will, not the paper money. And so it's frustrating to see America, say and think to themselves, gosh, it's just, I guess it's really expensive, I guess we can't do that because, our government's constrained just like everybody else. But they're not. They're not constrained. The question is why aren't they helping us? Why do they seemingly want to starve us out? Not judging by what they say, but judging by how they vote. If you look strictly at how they vote, it appears that they want to starve us out.
See, so you see Hillary mocking Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, when he ran in 2016, offered up, what was it, $33 trillion in new spending. 33 trillion. Followed by 19 trillion in taxes. 19 trillion. So where is the 14 trillion that's not covered in there coming from? Is it coming from his butthole? Was it coming from a booger? Is he digging for gold and finding fiat currency up in his schnoz? Where's the other 14 trillion coming from? Well, for an MMT person, we know it comes from a fucking keyboard, right? Comes from a motherfucking keyboard. However, for whatever reason, these buffoons have got us snowed. And so every time someone like Hillary Clinton cackles, and all this stuff at our movement, and we don't have an answer for it, we fail. Now, here, this is why I brought this up. You're out there in Washington, D.C. You've met with Ro Khanna. You've met with John Yarmuth. Both of them know MMT. John Yarmuth has been outspoken. Ro Khanna, not so much. Okay? I spoke to Ro Khanna personally at the Millions for Medicare March in Washington, D.C., at the Capitol building. Very tall, stately man, very much, if he had the right answers to these questions, I'd be right there voting for him for president if he was. But as of right now, what I see from him is somebody who's playing within that establishment narrative. And so that means that everything that we're asking for, everything that we need, is constrained by that same Hillary Clinton punchline of, it's all pie in the sky. How are you going to pay for it, Bernie?
Much of what he's proposing is very, very much pie in the sky.
How are you going to pay for it, Bernie? And so to me, I'm looking at a guy like you, relatively new convert, a couple years old in your walk in this MMT world, seeing now, it's like that movie where they wear the glasses and they can see the aliens when they wear the glasses, but when they take the glass off, they look like regular people. Now you've got these glasses and you can see all the neoliberals out there, the how you going to pay for it neoliberals, and all of them that are playing this lie that keeps us in chains. What has that been like for you as an activist, trying to motivate and attract and get people off the seats, out in the streets, based on this? They believe that we don't have the fucking money. They believe this shit. And the politicians like Ro Khanna may be great progressive guys someday, but as of right now, he ain't saying this stuff. What's it like for you, having been a relatively new convert, to experience that in real time? The amount of ignorance, the amount of denial, and watching the fact that all these things we need, like, don't look up, we got a climate crisis, don't look up, and we can't even get past this pay for it conversation. What's that like for you as an activist who's laying it all on the line, living in a car, trying to get these people to listen to you?
Well, I got to tell you, sitting on Ro Khanna's couch in his office, after and having dialogue with him, and him saying that he's read The Deficit Myth, and like Stephanie Kelton, and to try to give me the idea that he understands it, and then in the same breath say, but we got to come up with a progressive tax structure in order to find a way to pay for Medicare for all. I mean, it's really frustrating. It's like, what, did you just skim the book? Maybe you better go back and read, the book again, because, why are you talking about needing a progressive tax structure to pay for anything when that's not the way it works? And I think these guys, the Ro Khannas and the Bernie Sanders, they're talking this way because it's what we recognize. It's what we can assimilate. It's what non-MMTers can assimilate. And the whole tax dollars narrative is alive and well. And these guys, even the ones that know MMT, are keeping it alive and well. And that is just hurting the movement. It's just really, really hurting progress. And Ro Khanna might be a decent guy on a good day, but when it comes right down to it, he's just hoping that the contacts that he does have with voters, he's just hoping that they're low info voters, and he can just go on with the same old rhetoric and dialogue that we've always been happening. Maybe he doesn't want to put himself out there to be criticized by acknowledging MMT publicly. But privately, he'll tell you that he knows it. So yeah, that I can't reconcile those things, because it's just, obviously I just can't do it. And so I actually saw him today, and I asked him how he liked my sign, austerity is murder and lobbyists are the killers. He's like, oh yeah, cool, thumbs up. I'm like, dude, you're just shining me on, like, that's what he did in his office. Yeah, that's what he did in his office, and that's what he does in the street. And so he's just shining people on and letting them sit with that constrained dollars narrative, letting us think that, gosh, yeah, it's really expensive. How are we going to pay for that? We need a progressive tax structure. It's just like, it's like the ultimate fuck you to me. That's the way I take it,
So it's here. Let me give you some nuance and see what we can do with this. Right? Obviously, everybody, including many people that are right here watching this show, feel a certain type of way for the very few progressives we have in Congress. They want to protect them. They're concerned because there's so few of them. But in reality, this is the problem to me. Right? We've got 12 years, 4 years ago. 12 years, 4 years ago, meaning 8 years, to not elect people to office, but to actually mitigate climate change. Folks, timelines, people, timelines. 12 years, 4 years ago, 8 years. That means we got 8 years to not only build your third party, get them all elected, get the presidency, do all this stuff, pass legislation, and then do all the necessary carbon reduction and everything else has to take place. 8 years. Folks, 8 years. Did I say again? 8 years. So when I tell you that it's going to be very expensive, very, very expensive to pay for Medicare, a Green New Deal, a job guarantee, student debt cancellation, reparations, on and on and on and on and on, universal child care, shelter, food, all these things. Free college. It's very stupid. The number is going to be like, what? You could be like jaw drop. What? Okay. And the fact is that those dollars literally come from this. That's it. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up to you is not because I don't know it. I talk about this shit all the time. And I know you know, because you're putting your life on the line out there, staying in the streets, doing this stuff. The question is for those people that live and die in electoral politics, for you to achieve a Green New Deal, which is what is required in more to be able to at least mitigate the worst parts of climate change. We're not even talking about like putting it in its tracks and reversing it. We're talking about just getting started. We got 8 years. And these people are telling you that they can't afford it. How they won't tell you that it's not taxpayer dollars. They will literally sit there and blow sunshine up your ass to get elected, but they won't even do this inside of the halls. Now, I'm saying this, I understand they're afraid. I understand they want to get reelected. I understand the average person doesn't have a fucking clue, sadly. That does not change the timeline of 8 years. Folks, this is not mean. This is not angry. This is fucking, oh my God, I don't want to die. Okay. Oh my God, I don't want us to watch wars, climate wars, water wars, migration, more xenophobia as people migrate into the US and whatever, and there's no jobs for them. People hate each other, civil war, all this stuff. Look at Pakistan and India. Should one of them go into drought and the others have to migrate through? This is global, folks. Global. And we've stopped talking about the movie Don't Look Up. But this is what these guys are doing by playing this game of not telling us the truth. They are literally putting a gun to our head and saying, just vote for me. Okay. And we've got good people I love dearly, that want you to get out the vote. They want you to go campaign for candidates. They want you to fight the good fight. When they lose, they want to lick their wounds and go do it all over again. Now, I'm not suggesting we should not vote for these people, but I am suggesting that if they're not willing to fall on the sword, this 8-year window is not, and if you don't believe the 8-year window, let's roll it back. If you don't believe we're in the middle of an existential climate crisis, I question what world you've been living in. We are watching ice shelves literally melting. We're watching the permafrost on fire. We're watching all sorts of crazy ass shit happening. Strange migrations of sharks because of the waters changing, because of the melt, the ice melt. And we're watching all kinds of strange weather patterns and drought, tsunamis, you name it. So it's all happening right here. Science is pretty empirical on this. The time frame we laugh about because they've been saying this since the 70s. Well, they've been saying we need to get ahead of this thing, and we refuse to. So with that in mind, when you elect a progressive into office, God love you, we need more progressives in office. But if they're not knowing this stuff, how does that work with an 8-year timeline? Eric, your thoughts?
It doesn't work at all. We're dead. If we can't get these people talking our language, they're gonna lead us right down the constrained money river, and we're gonna drown. There's just nothing. We have to call them out at every opportunity, and we have to hold them accountable. And I know that their reelection campaign is important to them, but honestly, personally, I'm not voting for any congressional or presidential candidate unless they're MMT informed and MMT outspoken. Until that day, no one's going to get my vote. The left and the right, they're the same bird, right? Different wing of the same bird. The Democrats are controlled opposition for the Republicans. It's a game to keep us divided, and we're going to have to come together at some point around something to try and get a little bit of momentum to try and accomplish the next thing and the next and the next to get this thing pushed in a direction that we want to take it in. I think that the thing that we're closest to is healthcare. I think that since we know that 75% of America is behind Medicare for all, depending on what poll you look at, and we know that that we've got 120 some co-sponsors already on 1881. I think that that's the issue that we could unify on, because everybody needs healthcare. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right or anywhere in between or far left, it doesn't matter who you are, you need healthcare, and that ought to be something that we could unify on. So
well, hold on, let me just ask you something real quick, because this is part of my timeline issue here, right? So we know that part of the Green New Deal is in fact Medicare for all. That's one of
Yes.
the planks in the scaffolding, right?
Yes.
Imagine, hey, I've got Medicare for all. 7 years later, it's coming up on the 8th year, and you're sitting there holding your baby and you're going goo goo gaga, and you mistakenly look up and there's 100-foot wall of water coming your way, right? Because that's what we've done. We've screwed the pooch. I don't think we can do orphan politics. We need something to organize around. We need something to unify and bring us together. But the fact is that we are facing this existential climate crisis. If we only focus on Medicare for all, and it takes all of our effort to push the ball for Medicare for all, and we don't have climate crisis dealt with as well, we're in big trouble, aren't we?
We are. Nobody is talking about a Green New Deal. You know, that's like out of the conversation now. And
Disgusting.
yeah, and you know, part of the Green New Deal. I mean, a Green New Deal is a huge build out in every state, right? And so that was going to require a big new labor force, perfect for the federal job guarantee, absorb all of the unemployed, get us going in the direction we need, give all of those people that have a federal job, you know, healthcare benefits, Medicare for all, right? Because every federal job comes with benefits, right? Just like it does now. And you know, that 3-layer cake, that Green New Deal with a federal job guarantee and Medicare for all, those things that would be perfect because the Green New Deal is environmental justice, right? But the components of it are economic justice. So
That's right.
it's the one, the whole, the unify. That's definitely what we need. And how do we get that on the tip of everybody's tongue? You know.
Well, let me jump to that real quick. Obviously, Jordan has spent a lot of time with the Amazon workers organizing in New York. Labor is a great starting point. It's another wonderful organizing point, but they're organizing for a wage increase. They're organizing for better work hours. They're organizing for more days off or more autonomy from shift selection, whatever it is they're organizing around. It's about labor. It's not about the environment in this case. Okay. So hypothetically, we see labor as a great way of beginning to start that, but it's myopic because with the job guarantee, it literally forces every company to raise their wages to meet or beat that job guarantee. Okay. So with that in mind, I'm looking at President Manchin, as Jordan says, right? I'm looking at Kirsten Sinema, the two rotating villains that block everything. Manchin has said he wouldn't even stand in the way of Roe v. Wade. So Roe v. Wade is going to take up everyone's, and it's important. But let's be fair. The Democrats, when they had Obama, could have had RBG go ahead and retire, and we could have appointed someone there. When Biden was coming into office, people were saying he needed to stack the court. We needed to stack the court with tons of, Biden appointees. Do it in a recess appointment, whatever. But they could have done this, and they did nothing. Now, all of a sudden, you've got Roe v. Wade jumping out to the forefront. They're going to storm the streets of Washington, D.C. in a quest to protect abortion rights. And yet at the same time, though, this existential climate crisis is being ignored. The job guarantee is being ignored. Medicare for all is being ignored. All of these things are swept to the side. This will take place. 5 minutes ago, everybody was concerned about the 900-member Azov battalion. Do you see what I mean? It's like jump here, jump there, jump over here, jump over there. How can you keep an activist like yourself, people in the streets, how can you keep people consistent, focused, making demands, and not just, okay, I'm done. I've taken the selfie. I've got the t-shirt. Let's take some pictures together. Oh, it was so fun. And got lots of great Facebook posts about how wonderful it was. How do we make these protests and stuff not only sustainable, but matter? like really have demands, really come at this with some sort of way of seeing output, seeing results?
It's going to take some serious networking and coalition building and outreach and organization to mobilize that kind of long-lasting, consistent, always in the street, yellow vests in France every Saturday, getting what they want type of resistance. So the organization that puts that together is going to, or the organizations that put that together are the only ones that are going to have a chance of keeping that huge ball rolling.
At the end of the day, we can vote our heart out, and we should, but that's just like 2 hours every 2 years. That's an easy ask. That's our ante-up. That's just the price of playing the game. But it's not going to get us to where we need to be. Electoral politics isn't going to fix our problems. So, we're going to have to get in the street, and we're going to have to get into the streets en masse. We're going to have to find our collective power again. Once again, we've had it before, a long time ago. Civil rights, women's rights, gay rights. We made it happen. Those movements got traction because we filled the streets, and we can do it again. So it's going to take a big networking, and a big deal. Lots of people committed. So if we're going to avoid climate change and climate catastrophe, we're going to have to all jump in this together. So it's going to take a big, networking effort. So as far as my info goes, I'm with Real Progressives. I am a Real Progressive. Yellow Vest Actions for Real Progressives is a Real Progressive group. If you can support Real Progressives at patreon.com/Real Progressives, or if you want to support me in the street here, my efforts, you can support me at patreon.com Yellow Vest or /Yellow Vest Actions. So do that, and really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. And thanks for having me on, Steve. Appreciate it.
So when you think about the fact that ultimately Joe Manchin sits in his comfy mansion, Kirsten Sinema sits around, no one outside of their homes, unlike they were protesting the Supreme Court justices, okay? When you realize that they are ultimately left behind, they're just able to do whatever they want. They're able to monopolize the topic wherever they want. They're able to do whatever they want. When you realize that they're not even being protested on, they're not being told, we know you're the one. We know you're the one. When we're not making it uncomfortable for them, why should they ever change? Why would they ever change? The real issue is they won't change until you and I get out there and make it happen. I'm Steve Grumbine with this episode of Let's Get Ready to Grumble!